Hey everyone, before we get into this video, I wanted to let you guys know that we've revamped our Patreon substantially, so if you have a moment, feel free to check it out and see if you'd be interested in helping support the channel. There's going to be a link in the description of this video. I hope you'll consider taking a look, and I hope you enjoy this video.
Welcome to the Planeswalker Project.
In this episode, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite decks in all of Magic, Elves. I would go so far as to say that the Elf tribe is one of the most powerful tribes in the game to build around. Being rooted firmly in green, these denizens of the forest, they know their home very well, and they're able to tap into the might of nature to create mana of their own. As such, one of the best tricks Elf decks are able to do is produce insane amounts of mana ramp. I've had games where my Elf deck can win with only 2 lands on the board. My creatures can all produce the rest. The build that we're presenting here is a mono-green build under the leadership of the commander Ezuri, Renegade leader. He's widely accepted as the go-to commander for mono-green elves due to his ability of regenerating another elf and his overrun ability, which can be used multiple times over to give your creatures a huge amount of buff and trample. Of course, other commander options exist such as Dwynen and Yeva and Freyalise, but for the best elf deck, I would recommend none other than the OG Ezuri. And while I would love nothing more to be able to build a deck around Orphelos, he's unfortunately banned. Such sadness. So let's build this deck. For starters, we're going to want to put together our mana ramp, and being an elf-centric deck, this is perhaps the easiest part of the job. We have plenty of mana dorks we can use, such as the classic Llanowar Elf, Elvish Mystic, and the Finehorn Elf. These 3 are pretty much functional clones, so the redundancy is nice. We also have Arbor Elf, who is similar in function to the other 3, but he doesn't quite produce mana on his own. Devoted Druid is an elf that has recently surged in popularity due to Amonkhet, but we run her here for her synergy with Presence of God and Coat of Arms, as well as her being a neat 2-drop mana dork who can be untapped for reuse. Priest of Titania and Elvish Archdruid can each produce an absurd amount of mana, the greater our numbers are, and the Archdruid even comes with a nice Anthem ability. Heritage Druid can turn 3 elves into 3 mana. Interesting to note that because her ability does not require she be tapped specifically, you can use her ability right away, and you can even tap her as part of the cost. Jiraga Tree Speaker might take some investment to buff him up to the levels he needs, but he can eventually make all of our elves tap for 2 green mana. Wirewood Channeler gives us a lot more mana, similar to the Priest of Titania, but this can also produce mana of other colors should we need it. We do have a few ramp abilities that do not produce mana specifically, but they instead help us grow our mana production. Nissa, Vastwood Seeker, gives us a forest to our hand, and when she flips, she'll speed up our mana ramp, and until we can start churning out elemental fatties, of course. Oracle Moldiah gives us an extra land drop and gives us access to the top card of our library should it too be a land. Wood Elves gives us a forest card immediately into play. Cryptolith Rite, a card I enjoy playing in creature-heavy decks to begin with, makes all of our creatures tap for mana. Elvish Guidance also gives us a ton of mana from a single land, and if it isn't obvious by now, we're going to have a lot of mana to throw around. So what spells can we use all that mana for? Well, Craterhoof Behemoth is almost a staple ender in any elf deck, being able to drop huge amounts of hurt on the opponent and is quite easily ramped into. Akroma's Memorial will make our elves ridiculous in combat. Caged Sun gives us an additional mana with our lands, and it gives our green dudes an extra punch. Coat of Arms is absurd in just about any tribal deck, giving our swarm of elves more power than our opponents will be able to handle. Eldrazi Monument gives our board indestructible. Yeah, we'll have to sacrifice a creature to keep it each turn, but indestructibility makes for a hellish fight for our opponents. Paradox Engine is also equally insane in this deck. Use it in conjunction with Cryptolith Rite to let all of our creatures pay mana for our spells, and then untap them each time we cast something. Genesis Wave lets us dump all that mana into pretty much casting our entire deck. And we also have Overwhelming Stampede as our extra overrun ability. We run a couple of tutors in this deck, being able to fetch for the creatures that we need when we need them. Eldritch Evolution gives us basically the entire lower half of our curve, as the majority of our creatures cost 3 or less. Green Sun Zenith is a repeatable creature fetcher. Chord of Calling will give us access to so much, especially given Convoke. Tooth and Nail will win the game by letting you snack Craterhoof Behemoth or whatever other creature you need, and if for some reason your opponents don't scoop, well, I hope they enjoy Giant Elves. Birthing Pod lets us upgrade our elves into stronger elves, and it helps us build into the biggest creatures in our deck. Skyshroud Poacher lets us get any elf from our library and put it into play for a mere 3 mana. Our mana base is rather unique for Commander in that we only run 33 lands, which is absurdly low for Commander. 23 basic forests are easy enough, but we get some added utility from cards such as Cavern of Souls, which protects our elves from counter magic. Gaia's Cradle, a card that if you can't quite afford it, can be easily replaced by another basic forest, but it gives us a ton of mana to utilize. Mossward Bridge lets us sneak a card into play once we have 10 or more power on board. Myriad Landscape is the only fetch we really need, getting us 2 forests. Nykthos gives us a ton of mana the more elves we have out. And lastly, Firewood Lodge untaps an elf for 1 mana. Elves are a very straightforward strategy. We swarm the field with them, we ramp up, we buff them up, and then we swing in with our armies. It's nothing too difficult. If you want to change the deck into other colors, you can always go with Golgari by adding black and then using Nath of the Gilt-Leaf. Or you can go into Selesnya by adding Risk the Redeemed and make even more tokens. Those are just 2 of the many options if you want to run elves. If you want more high-end spells that utilize that excess mana, throw in some Eldrazi Titans, or maybe some more generic higher mana green control spells like Acidic Slime or Vorinclex. Winter Orb, while torturous to face, is a great option. Seedborn Muse also is very helpful when untapping your things. Maybe throw in a Helix Pinnacle for an alternate win condition. There are so many ways that you can take this basic elf build and customize it to your own playstyle. But what cards do you recommend to use all that green mana on? Let us know in the comments below. Whatever style you choose to use, the best option for a mono green basic commander deck running my lovely little elves will always be our friend Ezuri Renegade Leader. I hear he's rocking blue though nowadays. Did something happen?